All right, so let's just break this down a little bit further.
Break it down.
All right, man. So you have credit card debt.
Sure.
And you've already said you can get out of that credit card.
That's right.
But it's not fair to creditors if you have cars that are paid for.
That's
or
right.
if you have major assets that are paid for and you have a ton of equity. I, as a creditor, if you owe me money, Mike, why are you not paying me? Why can you not go just sell some of your property and pay me back?
Well, and that's a great question. And so I do creditor work as well. And it's the beauty of the bankruptcy system is it's truly a balancing of the equities, right? So it doesn't take care of consumers who may have racked up all the debt any more than it takes care of creditors who are owed money. It balances the equities between the parties. So if you're a creditor who's owed this money and you're sitting there going, well, that guy's got a paid for Maserati in his garage. Why can't he sell the Maserati? Odds are he's probably going to have to sell that Maserati or pay back the full value of that Maserati over the life of some form of bankruptcy plan. Now, there's certain creative ways that you may be able to work with individuals who have already titled automobiles to protect them, but that's a whole other question. But again, the issue becomes you've got to make sure you're being equitable to both parties in the bankruptcy.
Okay. Phone lines are open if you have a question about bankruptcy, 850-392-1544. You can always just email us your question at lawcall@wmbb.com. Something that always comes up in our bankruptcy shows has to deal with student loans.
Oh boy.
Okay. Bankruptcy's changed a few times over the last 20 years, I guess.
Yep.
Where do we stand on student loans now? Because student loans is out of control, number one.
Huge.
I mean, it's, the
largest debt pool in the United States.
And maybe the largest scam, one of the largest scams in
boy, if I had a soapbox right
recent history. But, you're lending a couple hundred unsecured debt of a couple $100 million against somebody's future livelihood to an 18 to 20-year-old person that doesn't maybe have the
I had a client one time who had
to borrow that money.
Exactly. I had a client who one time paid $60,000 in student loans for a portion of a photography degree from the Art Institute.
Yeah.
Right? $60,000 to learn how to take pictures, and she didn't even get to finish her degree, and now she's saddled with that debt because she didn't know what to do. And at that time, this was about 10 years ago, the law was far harsher, right, than it is now. So they've slowly been improving the law, but the issue is it's still technically a non-dischargeable debt because Congress hasn't acted to change that. So what they're doing is trying to find ways to reduce it and mitigate it so that it's a little bit easier to negotiate on.
So you said a key word there, dischargeable.
That's right.
And that's the whole purpose of a bankruptcy, is getting either reorganized or getting some debts discharged.
Correct.
Where you basically don't owe that debt anymore,
That's
right? And so if you have a student loan and you're trying to get out from or get some relief, maybe portions of that debt is dischargeable, but you're still going to be saddled with a bulk of it.
Right. And so one of the things that we've been working on here in the Northern District of Florida, where we sit from a bankruptcy bar standpoint, is we've been working with our local judge to put together a student loan modification mediation process where you can actually work with the servicers and work with the lenders to reduce your overall portion of debt and to be able to reduce those payments. It's still not fully getting out of it yet. We're working on that from a kind of an administrative and policy standpoint, but at least right now there's some mediation options.
But what do you do with the interest that's just accumulating every freaking month, it seems like?
You can actually abate that interest during bankruptcy. So so that's one of the perks, that if you were to have to file some form of reorganizational bankruptcy, maybe a Chapter 13 for an individual, then you can actually work on those interest rates during the life of a bankruptcy plan, which is a little bit better. It's still not the full relief that a person needs, and I think from a policy standpoint, we need to do a lot more there. But for right now, it's better than it has been.
Okay. So there's some relief out there.
There is. It's not, again, it's not enough, but it's getting better. And the courts are catching up too, since the legislative body in Washington hasn't.
Well, I mean, you're lending hundreds of thousands of dollars to someone that doesn't appreciate $100,000. They're at school, they're living off of loans, and they're enjoying going to college.
And there's nothing to take back if you don't perform, right? You lend somebody $100,000 on a home. If you don't pay for your home, they can take the home back and resell it. You can't resell somebody's education.
Right.
And it's one of the only debts up there with employment taxes and restitution for crimes that are completely non-dischargeable. The logic behind that is completely lost on me, but that's another conversation for another day.
All right, so interest rates are going up.
Yep.
Bank loans are changing if you're under a variable rate. Are you seeing any trends happening right now that are coming through your door? You finding a lot more 13s that individuals are having to file, or is it Chapter 7s?
Well, what you're really seeing a lot of, Chris, is you're seeing a lot of people who are doing everything they can to avoid talking to a bankruptcy lawyer. And that's honestly one of the most sad things, because these people are getting phone calls, whether it's from secured lenders with these variable interest rates. They're going, hey, your interest rate just went up. Now you're toast. And so because of that, they're coming to me late in the game after they've already rated retirement accounts, after they've already rated protected assets drawn on home equity lines. And I'm like, oh my goodness, if you would have just talked to me 6 months earlier, could have saved you hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I mean, it's head scratching at best, right? And so, if you have questions about bankruptcy, your consultation fee is very reasonable.
Well, and if you guys are seeing us tonight, we'll waive any consultation fee. So if you call the office and say, hey, look, I just want to talk to somebody. I want to know what my rights are. You call them, tell us you saw us on LawCall tonight, and we'll absolutely waive any consultation fee, because most important thing is that people know what their rights are.
Right. And just because you owe someone money does not mean that you're in a less or an unequal position. And I think you said it earlier, a balancing of the equities.
right.
Basically, you have two individuals and you have a contract or some type of agreement.
That's right.
One person's a creditor, one person's a debtor. It's just that simple.
It is.
But just because you're a debtor does not mean that you have nobody that will stand up for you, and it doesn't mean that you don't have rights either.
It's absolutely right. And if there's one thing I could say to anybody who's listening at home who's concerned about this, is if you're considering these options, talking to a bankruptcy lawyer doesn't mean you failed, it doesn't mean you're a deadbeat, and it doesn't mean you're a bad person. There's so much condemnation that's out there for people to be able to talk about what their rights are. How crazy is that? That it's people feel like they're terrible humans because they want to call someone to go, hey, I have these rights that are given to me. What does that mean?
Right.
That's all we want to talk about, is making sure that people know that they have options. They have the ability to find that fresh start. And so often they're afraid to do it because of these stigmas that are out there.